Hi, everybody. This is Jordan from Wednesday Night Warhammer. Today, we have another Tyranids Tactics video, specifically talking about the brain bugs, the Synaptic Nexus detachment. If you aren't already, please consider subscribing. We're doing lots of really fun battle reports that happen every single week, in addition to our occasional tactics topics. So, here we go, the Synaptic Nexus. All right, so for this video, we're breaking this tactics discussion down into some key components so that we can really figure out how this detachment works and some great strategies. So in this video, we're going over the detachment, of course. We're going to look at the stratagems, see which ones we think we're going to be using more than others, which ones are worth it, and which ones are not. We're going over enhancements. We're doing our key units that I think really make this detachment work. Some strategies, probably with those key units. Then we're going to dive into a specific tactic that I like to use in this detachment and honestly in any game of 40k that I'm playing. Picking your triangle, dedicating your resources specifically. And then we're going to round out this video with two list discussions of some fun ideas and some competitive lists that I've put together when I am playing the Synaptic Nexus detachment. Okay, so our detachment overview. What does this detachment do? So basically it gives you one big thing, the synaptic imperatives. At the start of each battle round, not your turn, you can select one imperative that hasn't already been used. As long as your units are within synapse range, that's 6 inches normally, they gain the benefit of the imperative that is active. The imperatives that are active or available for this detachment, we got 5+ invuln save for anybody within synapse, +1 to advance and charge rolls, and then finally +1 to hit in melee. So there's some cool abilities within those imperatives that you can kind of make use of, but the real strength in this detachment, I believe, is the stratagems. So, speaking of those stratagems, our first set of 3 I think are very strong. Our first one is probably one of the front runners of the entire detachment, called Irresistible Will. It's your shooting or fight phase, 1 synapse unit from your army that has not fought or shot, and 1 enemy unit within 24 inches of that. Each time a unit from your army shoots or fights that unit, reroll 1s to hit and wound. Now, in addition, they have to be within 6 inches of that targeting unit, but as long as they're within 6 inches of that targeting synapse unit, you will get the reroll 1s to hit and wound that selected. This stratagem is very strong. You can point and click at something and say, I want that thing extra dead. And it really allows for some great efficiency with whatever units are activating into that enemy unit. Next stratagem I think is really fun to use, but it doesn't always come up. It's the Smothering Shadow. Right after an enemy unit fails a battle shock test, target 1 synapse unit within 12 inches of that enemy unit. You roll 6 dice, and each 3-up is going to be a mortal. It's just 1 CP to do some good mortals. This is good to maybe finishing off a key unit that's on an objective or something after they fail battle shock. You can hopefully dish out some extra damage to it. Just something like that. Just to push your damage over the edge. Our next stratagem for this slide is Synaptic Channeling. During your command phase, you pick 1 synapse unit from your army, and then instead of their synapse R being 6 inches, it just goes to 9 inches. You're not going to use this all the time, but it might help out in a bind, trying to take a battle shock test or something, or if you're just trying to pass out buffs a little bit easier. Could be useful. Our next 3 stratagems are also pretty strong as well. First set is Reinforced Hive Node. Basically, this is going to give you Armor of Contempt to a synapse unit. This is really good with Norn Emissaries. If you have a walking Hive Tyrant, it's also really good with, especially if you can stack cover with it, then it makes armor penetration really difficult. You have to have -3 AP to really move those saves at all from those bigger ones. Really like Reinforced Hive Node. Next, we have Override Instincts. This stratagem specifically is going to help some bugs that sometimes have issues getting tied down. Basically, it just allows you, in your movement phase, you select the unit, and it can fall back, shoot, and charge. Fall back with your zone tropes, shoot something that normally in any other detachment your Zone Totes would just be done for the rest of the game, basically. Or Maliceptors are really good too, because you can fall back, shoot them with that blast unit, and then with that blast gun rather, and then you can charge again. So it's both Zoanthropes and Maliceptors really, really, really love Override Instincts. And lastly is the Imperative Dominance. This one, basically, you can just put one of your units that is within Synapse range, you can just put it back into an imperative that you have used already. Or if you want to save it for another turn, then you can just use an early imperative like that, and then you still have that other imperative. The thing that really comes to mind with this is one with Gargoyles. You can just give them a 5-up invuln as long as it's in Synapse range. That's super strong. Or if you're running a brick of Tyranid Warriors, then you can put them in +1 to attack and combat, and then you get those reroll ones as well as hitting on 2s with Tyranid Warriors. That can be pretty strong as well. All right, our enhancements. There's some pretty cool enhancements in this detachment, and it's really fun to play around with some of these. First one is Psychostatic Disruption. Enemy units cannot be set up within 12 of them instead of the normal 9. And additionally, once per game, if something is about to come into reserves before they set it up, you roll a 4-up, and then if you get that 4-up, that unit cannot arrive this turn. There is worth noting this can only be done, I believe, in the first and second turn. You can't automatically kill something from reserves. It would be a little bit nuts. The next one, we have Power of the Highbind. So this just increases the strength and AP of psychic weapons of the bearer by 1. Something kind of funny to note is the only really valid psychic weapon that any of our characters have is the Tyranids flavor, which is a little weird for this enhancement to be singled out like that. But anyways, it just so happens that if you add +1 strength and +1 AP to a pretty good flamer already, then it's it's fine. I'm not really complaining that the Neurotired is the only one that we can do that, because you have a strength 6 AP2 flamer that's still damage 2, which is pretty strong for 10 points. If you can fit it in, fit it in. Next, we have Synaptic Control. Reduce the damage of attacks allocated to the bearer by 1. This says it's 20 points, and basically this just says, please slap this onto your Hive Tyrant and enjoy. I've had walking Hive Tyrants just tank so much damage just because that -1 damage really, 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 really hurts certain armies, especially if you're able to stack it with Armor of Contempt, cover, and all of that. You can just get this really tanky, beefy boy that is great late game anchor with that -1 damage. So highly recommend the Synaptic Control on a Hive Tyrant. Last one is really fun. I haven't personally had the chance to play with it, but the Dirge Heart of Karis. Each enemy unit within 9 inches of the bearer at -1 leadership, and it is a Synapse character only. So you can do some cool stuff with it. It helps trigger Battle Shock and everything. It's 15 points. It is a little bit tough, and what's really disappointing is things like the Parasite of Mortrex is no longer Synapse. So I feel like that would be a great character to have this on, but since it is Synapse character only, I have a hard time of finding a place sometimes with this enhancement. All right, our key units. What brain bugs are we probably prioritizing when we're building our lists? Some of these are probably no surprise to you. First up, we've got the Neurolictor. It's just the best unit in the Tyranid Codex right now. You normally just run 3 of them. However, what the Neurolictor specifically does is going to help trigger Battle Shock for Smothering Shadow if you want to blink out some more wounds and stuff. It gives +1 to wound whole army if you get those key Battle Shock units, and it really does still help you on secondaries. So Neurolictor is always going to be a great add to Synaptic Nexus detachment. Next, we have the Maliceptor. He's the brainless bug of all brain bugs. He's a great mid-table bully. You can stick him somewhere. He's going to be very durable. He has a great gun. And then, like I mentioned before, the fallback and shoot strats fixes a lot of problems that you could potentially have with the Maliceptor with the blast. If they put one unit that you really want to shoot at right up against him, put it in combat, you can still fall back, shoot at that thing, and then charge back into combat if that's something you want to do. Great. Hive Tyrant lets all units advance and shoot It allows for that double AOC to do that strat again, and it's a great counterpunch in the late game that can really just hold the back line and then come out when it's needed. This we'll talk about it a little bit when we get to our list discussion, but this detachment I feel like really fits into just a big gun line. So I think a high turn is extremely important to allow units to advance and charge and get those angles that you really need in order to take out the targets that you feel fit. Zoanthropes. Zoanthropes, it's just really simple. They carry all of our buffs extremely well. The reroll ones to hit, the reroll ones to wound, the fall back and shoot. They're just really, really strong at applying more damage from those efficient buffs. In addition, they also have an extremely versatile profile. They can go to basically any unit that you really want to destroy. Glass cannon shot is going to be good against anything that's tougher than your your toughness 7 from your other gun, and then your blast gun, your strength 7 to D3. It's just going to be really great at killing Space Marines or any Marine equivalent unit like that. In addition, the fallback and shoot helps their game plan so much. In other detachments, I feel like if people can touch your zoanthropes, if people can tie up your zoanthropes, the zoanthropes are basically no longer in the game at all because they're probably just going to be able to do it each and every single turn, especially with the zoanthropes 5-inch move. So I feel like the fallback and shoot strat in this detachment really, really helps aid the zoanthropes in that extra effort of being flexible in their target priority and where they are on the table. All right, so some strategies that I'm always going to try and incorporate when I'm running the Synaptic Nexus detachment. First one is stack buffs. You're going to have to single out specific targets. You want to try and stack Irresistible Will and the Neurolictor bonus at the same time to really, really devastate one tough specific unit. And I also think it's a good idea to kind of angle so that you are able to pour as much as you can into those more defensive units at once with those buffs. This is a detachment that I don't believe is perfect at killing multiple units. You're not going to kill 3, 4, 5 units in a turn, but if you are able to get good windows, stack those buffs, and really do some good target allocation, there's a strong potential that you will be able to clear out most units in the game right now. Next up is Castle Up. You can't really spread your units too thin. You have to force your opponent to engage to you. And then as a reminder, all of our buffs are dependent on being in close proximity of important units. That Irresistible Will, you have to be within 6 inches of that targeting unit. And then some of the imperatives, all of the imperatives, you still have to be within synapse range. So if you are planning on taking advantage of those as buffs as well, you still really need to be close together in order to take full advantage of the strengths of the detachment. Then lastly, something like a little mind plan before you go into any game or before you even build your list is you got to plan your imperatives, what units you think are really going to benefit from your imperatives and when. An example would be turn 1, advance something up if you have a Mouse Scepter that you want to take the center or something like that. Then turn 2, you get a 5-up invuln from your Gargoyles or from your Tyranid Warriors if you want them to be a little bit tankier. And then turn 3 or 4, once things are really, really getting stuck in, +1 to hit is normally the last imperative that I tend to activate. I'm not saying that that's the imperative flow that you should do every single game, but I believe that it's really nice to kind of have those thoughts in mind. Another good consideration would be if you want your Gargoyles to have a 5+ invuln turn 1 so that they can take the center, use a draw play instead of putting out one of your key pieces. I believe that would also be a pretty good one too. A key concept to playing detachments and armies like the Synaptic Nexus, I believe, is picking your triangle and staying there. This is a concept where you just pick 3 objective markers, you push those areas, and then you stay there. You don't overextend. You don't push into any other objectives that you don't necessarily need. You concentrate your primary white right within those 3 objective markers. It's going to allow your units to support each other, stack those buffs and synergies like we were talking about before, Irresistible Will, allowing for you to really get full effect of those reroll ones to hit and wound with every unit that you possibly need. And honestly, most of the time, you can only score 15 primary each turn. A lot of these missions now in 10th edition, it's limiting to 10 primary. So why would you extend to places where you don't necessarily even need? I know there's going to be times where you're going to want to punch out and destroy units that maybe your opponent has staged, or if you get secondaries like engage on all fronts or capture enemy outposts. But I think for the most part, you will find that tankier castle armies are just going to do better when they stay in their castle. So before you play any of your games, try and think to yourself, can I pick a triangle? Can I stay there? Do I really need to extend to any other objective markers? You might realize that a lot of the time the answer is no. Just stay in your happy triangle and score those points. All right. Lastly, we're going to talk about two pretty cool lists that I'm excited to play with this detachment. One of them being a little bit more competitive slanted, I believe, and then the other one is going to have a little bit of a fun twist. So this first list, we have a little bit more of a competitive slant on it. Our characters, we have the Hive Tyrant, Synaptic Control with -1 damage, Arrow Tyrant with the power of the Hive Mind to give it a really, really strong flamer. 2 Gargoyles. Please always bring at least 2 Gargoyles. They are so good. They are so good. And then our other data sheets, we have a Biovore. Also, please always bring a Biovore. It is incredibly strong. 2 Exocrines, 3 Maleceptors, 3 Neurolictors, 2 Pyrovores, 2 Ripper Swarms, a 6-man Zoanthrope, and then a 3-man Zoanthrope. So this list is really, really, really depending on just our best data sheets in the codex and trying to bring as many of those as possible and fitting them in with some key synergies. So our key synergies are going to be either the Exocrine or Irresistible Will, giving as many guns as possible, the reroll ones to hit, as well as the reroll ones to wound. Then you have the Maleceptors taking key points on the field, being extremely tanky, and just providing a -1 to hit aura to anything that comes close enough to it, and also a really strong gun that goes well with the Exocrines, as well as advancing and shooting from the Hive Tyrant. In addition, we have 9 Zoanthropes. We have 1 6-man and then 1 3-man. I would encourage you to have the 6-man start on the board, and then, if at all possible, strategic reserve the Zoanthropes to maybe come in at a key point, focus down on one target that maybe the rest of your army isn't looking at, and that might help you clear off something important that has come in. I really like this list. I think it synergizes well. I think it carries the buffs and the strategies that Synaptic Nexus allows you to have pretty well. And I've had a whole lot of fun playing this list specifically. In addition, one more thing I want to mention before we move off from this list is the inclusion of Pyrovores. Pyrovores are very, 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 very important in the Synaptic Nexus because Maleceptors only have AP -2, and a lot of Space Marines are able to stack Armor of Contempt alongside cover. Now, if they're able to do that, your AP2 gun goes to AP dash gun with the Maleceptor. So, another good strategy to think about if you are playing this list is also have at least 1 Pyrovore come in from strategic reserves, have an angle on a key target, shoot it first with their flamer, knock off that cover to make their durability a little bit less, and then go ham with those Maleceptors. All right, and here is the other list. So we've got the same core, basically Hive Tyrant, Neuro Tyrant, 2 Gargoyles, Biovore, 2 Exocrines, 2 Maleceptors this time, 2 Neurolictors because of points, and then we come to the coolest part of the list: double Norn Emissary. Now, I am not saying that if you take 2 Norns in a list that you're going to win every single game. However, you're probably going to have fun with them. Norns, I think, are a little bit tricky. A lot of people want to push them out and have them hit their objective as quickly as possible. I highly encourage you to not do that, especially if you're on GW terrain. Really hide them behind those smaller footprint pieces so that they can angle and counterpunch onto their favorite objective instead of just putting out there first. So a key play that I like to do is I like to put my gargoyles out, string them out as far as possible. Oftentimes you will be able to touch 2 objectives with them at once, just because of how fast they move as well as their bases. Then if your opponent dedicates any stronger units out to the center, then that's the time where you put out your Norn Emissary for a counterattack, as well as your Maleceptors and X-Rays. Another really key thing with this list is I always try to have 1 Maleceptor babysit 1 Norn Emissary, because if you're able to stack those defensive buffs like we were talking about before with Armor of Contempt and so on, and you put a -1 to hit are from the Maleceptor, Maleceptor and Norn Emissary combo on an objective marker is going to be very disgusting for anyone to seriously commit and try and remove. So yeah, that's my more fun list. I'm going to be playing it on stream pretty soon. I'm excited to do that. And yeah, I hope you like both of those list discussions. All right, everybody. That's going to wrap up our Synaptic Nexus detachment tactics. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing, like I know you did. We really appreciate all the support. Please go ahead and check out our sponsors, which will be listed in the description below. Have a great day. Happy wargaming.
And shout out to our patrons. Thank you for your support. And if you're looking for commission painting or some awesome dice, please check out our sponsors down in the description. Thank you guys, and remember, is it Wednesday yet?